Steve Berra has been hated on ever since the release of his DVS Skatemore part in 2005, which featured pristinely built obstacles disguised as real street ledges and rails. To this day, it's hard for a week to go by before a new form of drama surfaces in the skateboarding community, with Berra somewhere nearby. Whether you loathe him or really don't give a Steve Berra and his Battle at the Barracks tournament is pretty much the only consistently held skateboarding competition in existence today. Universally recognized as a zero-sum equalizer in flat ground skateboarding, apart from a few minor tweaks in the rules, like challenge flags and no manuals, the Battle at the Barracks format has remained true to its original form across 12 seasons. SLS is another long-standing contest series, but it's not zero-sum, and the rules change almost every season, making for weak justifications on year-to-year comparisons. One of the best things about Battle at the Barracks and its tradition of adhering to its original rules, besides the actual skateboarding, is the ability to draw virtually endless conclusions and takeaways with data from the tournament's nearly 400 individual battles. I've attempted to identify the overall best and worst skaters in this tournament before, based on admittedly flawed, self-made parameters. While there's some truth to the conclusions made in those experiments, there exists even more advanced and reliable ranking systems that can better pin down who the most skilled and least skilled skaters are in Battle at the Barracks. Someone much smarter than myself, the late physics professor, chess master, and homie from Hungary, Arpid Elo, created a now widely adopted ranking system for chess players, which is applicable for any type of zero-sum game, including a game of skate at Battle at the Barracks. In a nutshell, the ELO ranking system rewards winners with points and punishes losers by taking their points away, and the math behind the formula is based on statistics and averages, ultimately considering those with the highest ELO scores to be the most skilled. The idea behind ELO is that any competitor, in this case a participant in Battle at the Barracks, has a range of skills that form a bell curve, with the average of the bell curve being where a particular skater's overall skill level is most common. In other words, when you go out and have a flat ground session, some days will be great, where you land more tricks than you expected, putting you closer to the right side of your individual bell curve. On other days, you feel like a dog's arse, and you might be lucky enough to land a couple kickflips, or none at all, putting you further to the left of your typical flat ground session. But statistically speaking, and depending on the standard deviation, on any given day, you can expect that 65 to 80% or more of your sessions will end with you landing the tricks you've mastered. If we use the ELO system in Battle at the Barracks, we're taking your individual bell curve and mathematically stacking it against your opponent's bell curve, which may be better or worse than you, depending on your skill levels. Apart from the fact that it was developed by a highly intelligent chess master physicist, and is now a widespread ranking system, rumored to even be used in dating apps like Tinder, another main benefit of ELO is that it's fairly simple to implement, needing only the result of a match to build a skater's ELO score. If we look at Season 1 of Battle at the Barracks, we're starting with 32 skaters competing in 16 Round 1 matches. While it's obviously not actually true, we're assuming that since all 32 skaters are competing in this tournament for the first time, they all start with the same base ELO score, which we'll set at 1500. Before the battle begins, we need to calculate each skater's transformed rating, based on their pre-battle ELO score, which is used to give us both competitors' expected score. Since we're starting at Season 1, all Round 1 skaters' ELO scores before the Rochambeau is the aforementioned 1500. So using the transformed rating, both skaters will have a value of 5623.41. Before the battle, we still need to come up with the expected score, and since both parties have an equal ELO score, their expected scores are also the same at 0.5. We obviously know the outcome of each battle at this point, which is where we use our final calculation to get the updated ELO score. To get that figure, we need to implement a relatively high K factor of 175 due to the high importance of victory. The K factor is a component of the ELO ranking system that's used to determine how much a win or loss affects your score. A higher K factor affects your ELO score more if you win or lose, and a lower K factor affects your ELO score less. In the MLB and NBA, the ELO score K factor is lower because teams play hundreds of games in a single season, and a losing streak and/or winning streak doesn't necessarily determine how you'll end up in the playoffs. The NFL and Battle at the Barracks are somewhat similar in that their seasons are short, and a single win or loss greatly affects the outlook of your schedule. It's historically not easy to win a match in Battle at the Barracks, with over 60% of all 216 different participants never being able to snag a dub. The 102 lucky skaters who've been able to win at least one battle average out to a winning record of 57%. So on average, if you win a battle, you're barely more than 50% likely to have done so. Hence why we throw more weight on the K factor at this point. We're also using a margin of victory multiplier and a match difficulty multiplier in order to give extra credit to winners who avoided letters as well as those who did so with tricks that have a low consistency rate. With this in mind, the 16 round 1 winners all enjoy varying boosts in their ELO score, while the 16 losers ratings drop as well. Keep in mind, this rating system is by no means 100% perfect, especially with this first run through, but it paints a much more accurate picture of which skaters have overcome the odds of beating a stronger opponent and vice versa, instead of simply using win-to-loss ratios to decide who's the strongest skater. As we progress through Season 1 with ELO, the Round 2 winners face each other as undefeated skaters, so their starting ELO scores are higher than Round 1, and their opening ranking before the battle will now differ because of the prior variations in margins of victory and match difficulty. An initial point to note is Johnny Layton pinch hitting for Berra in Round 2, resulting in Layton's opening Round 2 score to be below Mark Johnson's, who earned 120 points from his Round 1 win over the Legion of Doom. This is a good example of how ELO rewards an underdog, but factors in the narrow margin of victory, giving Johnny over 100 points for a single win because of his lower starting score compared to MJ's, whose score now drops back near its initial 1500. This system continues to alter skaters' scores through the championship, understandably giving the undefeated Mike Moe the highest ELO score after winning. In this case, he grew his ELO above 2000. Season 2 plays out much like Season 1, because the field is full of brand new Battle at the Barracks competitors. We all know Chris Cole won the second season title, and like Mike Moe, his ELO score will be the highest of this particular bracket. It's during Season 3 where ELO really starts to work its magic, exemplified by Chris Cole and Joey Brzezinski returning from their respective seasons and stacking their scores against each other. Chris Cole's formidable ELO of 2,128 pre-battle reflects that because of his performance in Season 2, he has a 97% chance of beating Joey. So when he did end up with the win, his score only went up by about 5 points, and Joey wasn't penalized as much because his below average 1500 ELO is being stacked against a level 2100 plus champion. One of the first things we want to know with this system is who's the best, which can be measured in more than one way. But this way we're going to use right now is to check the highest single ELO score ever, which actually belongs to Sewa Kroetkov at 2,883.45. Sewa reached this level after his win against Shane O'Neill in the finals of Season 10, narrowly winning by 1 letter, but the battle was relatively difficult, with the tricks required to win being barely above 65% consistent on average. Seva's win in this match earned him less than a single ELO point though. It just so happens to be the highest score anyone's ever achieved. Seva's first battle was a loss in Season 4, and he got destroyed by fellow newcomer Davis Torgerson. Kroetkov's Round 1 loss dropped him down to a 1300 ELO, more than 20% below the average ELO score of roughly 1700. Sewa came back in Season 6, giving himself a huge ELO boost by beating Wes Kramer in Round 2. When Kroetkov lost to P-Rod in round 3, his score dropped from 1767 down to 1704, and while he performed fairly well in Season 7, making it to the third place battle, it was his perfect Season 8 performance that solidified Sewa as one of the greatest to ever enter the tournament. Sewa had a 3% chance of beating Shane O'Neill, who had a beefy 2,681 ELO score before the battle, but Kroetkov swiftly skunked Shane, and did it with difficult tricks, boosting his 2,091 ELO score by nearly 800 points in a single match. Ever since, Sewa's been an absolute problem for competitors in Battle at the Barracks, with his only losses since the Season 8 championship coming from Jocelyn, the Season 10 champ, and Luan, the Season 11 champ. Those two losses have cost Sewa a solid 600 plus points in total, with his current ELO in Season 12 clocking in at 2,284. Sewa's slated to skate against the hot rookie Aurelien Giraud in round 3, who skyrocketed his ELO to over 2,000 after upsetting Jocelyn in round 2. According to ELO, Sewa has a 75% probability of beating the glitch, but their battle could go either way. Luan Oliveira has the highest ELO score in Season 12 so far, and he needs to face Cody Cepeda in round 3. Luan is favored to take the W at 93%, but Cody is actually 2-0 against Oliveira, so this will be another heavy showdown. Thanks to this ranking system, we can identify the single biggest upset in Battle at the Barracks history, which was not when Chris Chan beat Chris Cole. Major Crew's Nick Holt had a 1% chance of beating PJ Ladd in Season 7 Round 1, the latter of whom was coming fresh off his second straight championship title. Bolts beat PJ, whose pre-battle ELO score was 2355, by 4 letters as a fresh face, and consequently earned almost 1,000 ELO points in one match. Holt went on to beat Season 4 champ Morgan Smith in round 2, earning a modest 2 ELO points for that narrow victory, but Costin put an end to Nick's rampage, knocking him down to a 2,100 ELO score. At the time of making this edit, Nick Holt has the third highest ELO score in Season 12 at 2,165. Costin might have been the guy who cut Nick Holt's rise to ELO immortality short, but Costin is also the unfortunate owner of the lowest single ELO score ever, which is almost 40% below average. This happened when Malto beat him in round 1 of Season 11, dropping Costin's score to the current record low. Similar to Sewa's brief taste of all-time greatness, Costin's bottom-dwelling metric didn't happen suddenly. Costin's loss to Nick Tucker in Season 10 Round 1 cost him 400 ELO points, because before Season 10, Tucker didn't perform well in Battle at the Barracks, losing both his prior Round 1 matches to Tori Pudwill and Ronnie Krager. Tucker's 2 Round 1 losses gave him a 10% chance of beating Costin in Round 1 of Season 10, but his upset over Costin revitalized his ELO score and has since risen to above average. One of my biggest questions after running ELO through Battle at the Barracks is, why are the biggest highlights from newer seasons? Why don't Seasons 1 through 6 have the biggest ELO scores and upsets? Based on the numbers, matches were much more even in Seasons 1 through 6. As far as ELO scores. So when PJ won his second championship in a row, it was impressive, but it wasn't really unexpected or against the odds. Mike Moe and PJ were pretty close to being an even match before the Season 5 championship battle, with Ladd having a 62% probability of winning. And while P-Rod had only an 8% chance of winning the Season 6 title match according to ELO, PJ's win didn't really change scores that much. Season 7 is when Battle at the Barracks really opened the field to a wider spectrum of skill levels, which caused huge swings in ELO rankings, best exemplified by PJ's loss to Nick Holt.